doing this video on clutch operation. When you talk about the clutch on a vehicle, first you're dealing with a vehicle that has a manual transmission that needs the gears shifted to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this particular vehicle and reverse to get neutral. We're going to reference the clutch. Here's the clutch pedal here. This is our console lab trainer. When we talk about the clutch, if you can see where the laser is right here, this red piece here is the clutch's pressure plate, and inside of that is the clutch disc. So to better show you the pressure plate and the disc, I've got one on the bench here. And this is what the clutch disc looks like, and this is the pressure plate, okay? It is held to the engine's flywheel. This is a flywheel over here. It's not the right one for this clutch disc, but it gives you the idea. It's held against the flywheel, solid, by the pressure plate. The pressure plate bolts to these bolts, sandwiches the clutch in between, and holds it solid to the flywheel. So when the engine's flywheel turns around, because it's bolted to the back of the crankshaft, the pressure plate will turn as well. Now, the clutch has splines on the inside, right here. That's spline to the input shaft of a transmission. So when the clutch turns, the input shaft of the transmission turns, which would allow the vehicle to be selected through different gears and drive down the road. When you push your foot on the clutch, and I'm going to show you this on the trainer, but I'm going to show you here, a bearing pushes down on these gigantic springs. And what it does is it pulls this surface away from the flywheel, unsandwiching this clutch disc. So when I say unsandwich, it would just make it loose so it doesn't spin anymore. Then the engine flywheel could turn and the clutch disc would stay put. So I'm going to demonstrate this right now. We have this drivetrain trainer in gear. You can see the gears turning inside the transmission. You can see the differential gears turning. I'm going to push my foot on the clutch, and the clutch disc, which is in between the flywheel and this red pressure plate in there, will stop turning. Now, you think it's still turning, but look, the transmission isn't turning anymore, and neither is the drive shaft. I'm going to release it with my foot right now, and it re-engages. So the clutch's job is to act as a brake between the engine and the transmission. So the engine can keep turning. I'm gonna get both in the view this time. So the engine can keep turning. I'm gonna put my foot on the clutch, but the transmission gears stop turning. The engine's still running. Could be running at 5,000 RPM. The customer has their foot into it, but their foot's on the clutch, and the gears inside the transmission don't move. So that's how a clutch works. It acts as a brake between the motor and the transmission. How does it do that? Well, on the clutch pedal down here, the clutch pedal goes into this master cylinder. And what this is a piston and a plunger that uses brake fluid to create pressure. And when I step my foot on the clutch, it pressures up the fluid in this line, and there's a piston inside of there that pushes on that gigantic spring of the pressure plate. Now you're not going to be able to see it very well, but it's in there. When I push my foot on the clutch, it pushes in on the pressure plate, releasing the clutch, and stops everything from turning. This one has a hydraulic clutch, so it has brake fluid inside of there, just like a closed brake system would have. You can get smaller cars that just have a cable or a lever for their clutch, but pretty much all clutches nowadays are of the hydraulic type. So the parts, we have the clutch brake, the clutch pedal, we have the master cylinder is what this is called, and inside here is called the slave cylinder. It's the piston that actually does the work. We have the pressure plate assembly, which is this painted red device, and then the clutch disc that is mounted between the pressure plate and the flywheel. I hope that this clearly teaches you clutch operation.